All right, welcome everybody to the Troitsky 2023 AutoCAD workshop. My name is Cameron, and I'll just be walking you through some of the basics of the AutoCAD program. The purpose of this is just to give you guys some general basic knowledge of how to use the program, which you can then use to model your bridges, just try out different designs, and then also this should give you a good basis for any other courses that you're going to take that involve AutoCAD, and also in industry where it is used frequently. So I'll just get right into it. You're going to open up AutoCAD. I'm on Mac, but it's pretty much the same if you're on Windows. Now you can open up the basic AutoCAD template here, acad.dwt. I'm going to use a previous template that I've used, but it'll be the same thing. I'll open that. And just going to take a moment to open. All right. So before we get started, I'm just going to get rid of this stuff. And we'll start fresh. So when you first open it, you should be in model space, which this will typically be a black area. There may be grid in the background, but that doesn't really mean anything for your purposes. What?
It's not, your screen's not changing.
It's
You're still on Discord.
Not changing. That's a thing.
Let me see if I can refresh. Just stop watching and watch it again. Yeah, you're stuck on. Oh no, now it refreshed.
Can you see it?
Yeah, I do see it. We'll just get Simon to edit everything. Just keep going.
All right. So yeah, you should see the model space. You can tell it's model space because in the bottom left-hand corner here, you're going to have model highlighted. The other tab will be layout, and we'll go into layout after. So first thing you'll notice is it's not going to be your normal cursor. It's going to be crosshairs. You're going to be selecting with your left click, and you have options with your right click. When it comes to dragging your mouse, so you may have noticed when I left clicked, a little box formed. So what that does, if you click and go left to right, then you create an area, and anything within that area you will be selecting. But if you go left to right, anything that intersects this box will be selected. And there are other things that you can do. If you drag it, it's the same selection criteria, except it's a freeform shape. And as well, it's the same with the green, which designates interception. Moving around your model space, you're going to be using the ball of your mouse, or if you're using a trackpad, I believe it's 2 fingers. But if you're using a mouse, which I recommend for AutoCAD, how to pan around your screen, which means move your screen around, is you're going to press in on your roller ball on your mouse, and that will be designated by the hand, and then from there you can move your screen. So you can see the origin, the XY, is moving as I press down on the cursor ball and then move my mouse. Zooming on the trackpad, spread the 2 fingers as you would normally for zooming in and out, and then with a mouse, obviously it's roll in and out. So one of the first things you're going to want to do is just check that your units are in the right spot. So for that, you're going to want to go into here, and it is, format, and then units. And then you just want to make sure that you're in millimeters for insertion scale. And click OK, because everything else is good. Decimal degrees for angles, and then decimals otherwise, everything is good. So the first thing is, and this is what the majority of things in AutoCAD will be lines. So you're going to go to your line command, which you might have a taskbar, maybe at the top and maybe on the side like mine. But you can click on that, and you're going to click 1 to insert your first point, and then drag, and then drop, click again to create your second one. And then what this will do, you'll be continuously making a line. If you want to stop at just that line, you click enter, and then you finish that line. Now to make things more precise, we go and make another line. When you click first, that's your insertion point, and then you'll see that on the top of the line, you'll have a dimension highlighted. What you can do is you can type a number in there. So if I want that to be 65 millimeters long, I type 65, and then click enter, and that creates a 65 mil line. Also, alternatively, instead of enter, if you get to the end of a line and you want to stop, you can also click escape. Both do the same thing. So now you know how to draw a line with a length. The other thing is angle. So if I want to draw a 70 mil line, I can type 70, and then if I want it on an angle 30 degrees from horizontal, I type 70, and then I click tab. Tab switches me to change the angle. So from that I can type in 30 degrees, click enter, enter again, and there's my 70 mil line, 30 degrees from the horizontal. So that's lines. Next is selecting multiple objects. So I'm just going to draw a bunch of lines quickly. And another thing with lines is if you press L and then click enter, that's going to be a line. That's a shortcut for line. So if I just click and make one more random line. So I've got 3 lines here. And I'm just going to illustrate the selection that I brought up earlier. So you can just click on one, and so that selects that. From that you can drag that, you can change it, and you can do a lot of things with that. You can move it. But say you want to select more than one. One option is to hold shift down and select the next one. Or yeah. And as you don't even have to hold shift, sorry. You're just gonna keep clicking multiple lines, and I've selected them all now. The other option would be, of course, as we mentioned earlier, drag with the blue left to right, select them all, or from right to left, and then any that are intersected, see how they're not all encapsulated inside the box, but they're intercepted, and that'll select them as well. And next, we'll do undo and delete. So say I don't want this line anymore. It's not in the right place, not the right dimension. I can click backspace or delete. That'll delete that. But if I've accidentally deleted that, I can find the undo up here, or you can type U, just the letter U, and then click enter, and that will undo my movement or previous command. So I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of these. Or not get rid of them. I'm going to go and I'm going to just quickly go over copy and paste. So what we can do here is we can also copy and paste. You're going to select them all, as we've mentioned. You're going to right click, copy selection, and then what you are able to do is you're able to specify the point that you want to copy them from. So you just click anywhere or any point on any one of those lines, and then you click again to place them there, and I can keep placing copies of them. So that's copy and paste. You can also cut, but you typically mainly do copy, just because if you cut and you lose what you move, then you're left without a backup. So copy is typically recommended. There's plenty more things other than lines. For example, you can do an arc, which you can specify the start of it. You're going to select the midpoint, and then you're able to select another point. And what this will do is form an arc with 3 points and a center designating a radius. So that is an arc. Polylines is another thing. And the other neat thing about AutoCAD is for everything that's in the toolbar, there is a shortcut. So for an arc, if I type A and then click enter, that's an arc. Polyline, same thing. You can click one point, click the next, and I can keep going until I click enter, at which point I will finish my polyline. So that is arcs and polylines. Next up, we have rectangles and circles. Rectangles, there's a couple options that you may have, but the default is typically first corner and second corner. And same with lines. When you input a rectangle, you're able to specify dimensions. And this is really with any shape or line that you're putting in. You can specify the dimensions, make it exact. So I can go 100 by 50, and I'm just doing this with the tab button. So there, I've got my 100 mil by 50 mil rectangle, and I'm able to adjust that if I want as well, just by dragging the nodes once I select it. And circles, similar. This will be when the default is a center point and then a radius. So I can click the center point. Say I want to put the center point here on the corner of this rectangle. I can click the corner and then go out with a radius. So say I want my radius to be 50, I can type 50 and then enter, and then I've got a circle, radius 50, centered on the corner of that rectangle. And one final thing before we get into the example is just movement. So I'm going to select these shapes here and move. You can drag it, but see how he did that? I just stretched the shape when I do that. So instead of doing that, which is going to be tedious if you try to move each vertex, is if I type M, that's for move, click enter, and then I can specify the base point that I want to be, sort of how I orient this movement. So I'll click this corner, and then I can move this wherever I need, with that corner that I selected as the base point as the insertion point. So that's going to be really helpful later on. So let's go ahead and get rid of that. And what we're going to do is we're just going to get right into an example here. And it's going to be a basic bridge, an arch bridge with cables. And it's going to be at a slight incline up to the middle point. And what this sort of represents is, a potential bridge design, but also it incorporates some things that are somewhat realistic. But it really, at its base, it's just a basic bridge shape that should give you an idea of how you can start to model your bridge for Troitsky. So we're going to start with a line. And I want to go straight across. So as I'm in millimeters, if I want to do a 20 meter length, I'm going to type in 20,000. So that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to zoom out using the mouse until I can see the entirety of that 20 meter line. So that is going to be the bottom. From there, I'm going to go 5,000 up, and that designates a 5 meter increase, and that's just straight up 90 degrees to the other one, and you should be able to see that angle when I draw that. And then I'm going to do a 45 degree line here. And it's going to be, so how I can make this in line with this, so I'm going to go across here. I'm going to hover over the top of that 5 meter point I made. I'm going to go across. I'm going to make this 45 degrees. And then I'm going to tab back. And then until I reach there. And so you'll feel it snap, not feel it, but your cursor will sort of snap to that line if you've hovered over that point before. So there's going to be a little X there, and that's going to be our first line. What this can do here is it's going to create a 3-point arc. So how we're going to do that is we're going to do a line. I'm going to select 3-point arc first, second, and third point. Click enter. There we go. That's the top of our bridge portion there. So next, what we can do is we can take this and we can offset 9 of these over at 2000 millimeter spacing, 2 meter spacing. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the offset command. So that's, you type O, and then that's, you'll see there, and you come up with a bunch of options. We want offset. So I'm going to specify the offset distance. I can click really anywhere. I'm going to go from here, and I can type 2000, and then I can select the object. And so that shows me where I can offset that, and that'll keep the original one. You can go over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and one more because it's 1 plus 9. And so that will be the start of our cables. I'm going to press escape to leave the offset command. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the bottom beam of this bridge. So I'm going to select my 20,000 millimeter line, my 20 meter line, and I'm going to use that offset command again. Or instead, we'll use copy, just to become familiar with it. So I'm going to press C. C is circle, so it's not C for copy, it's CO for copy. Click enter. I'm going to select the base point here, and then can go down 2,000 down 2 meters. So there, I just typed 2,000. And then we are going to put a line on the end here. Actually, just trying to think here. Actually, let's do the offset of this. So we're going to go offset. No. I'm going to change this. We're going to go up. Delete that. We're just going to use offset here. The copy wasn't exactly what I wanted. Offset. Specify the offset distance down. We go. So maybe we'll go 2,000. And then we will do a line on the end. And then what we will do here is we will just sort of trim the tops of these. So we're going to use the trim command here. So that's T, R, and that's trim. You can see it there. Click enter. And what this does is it clicks off the ends of any lines that are previously intersected by another line. So here I can just go ahead and I can trim the tops of each of these cables, and that's going to remove those so that it looks like that. Click enter to end that. What we can do here is we can make these look like cables. So right now they just are lines, but in reality, you know, cables have widths, so we're going to represent those widths by selecting them all. See, I've selected too much there. I'm going to select as much as my box can, and then I'm going to continue to select these smaller ones down here. From there, we can offset all of these to the right. So we're going to use the offset command. Specify distance. Why don't we go 10 centimeters over, 100. Select. Oh, I can do them one by one, but and you can also offset to the other side, but I'm going to offset all of mine to the right. And what this will do is it will allow me to use the extend command in a second. So I've done that, click enter, and then I'm going to use extend like I mentioned. So you may not be able to see it here, but these aren't actually meeting the top of the arc anymore, because I've taken whatever this length was and offset it 100 mils over, and obviously that's not going to reach the higher end of the arc. So what we can do is we can use extend. So that's EX, extend, click enter, and I can just go, I can click each of these, and what this is doing is it's closing this gap up here at the top near the arc. I'm going to go along, I'm going to select each of these, and that will close that gap on the right side of the cables. Enter when I'm done. Alright, so that is the cables. Now we're going to trim the bottom and offset the top. So you'll see here there's just a little piece there, and we can just get rid of that. We use trim. We'll just get rid of that. Yeah. So done that. Next thing we can do is we can offset the top of the arc, and this will, give that top arch beam some form instead of a line. Use the offset command again, and we'll see what this does in the case of an arc. So I'm going to type 500. I'm going to select this, and you can see I can either offset it above or below or above, go above, and so now I've got that nice top of the arc now. So what we've got here is a little discontinuity here. So what we can do is we can just fix this line up here. So we're gonna, we extend, I might as well get rid of this. We're going to delete this line just by clicking delete, and I'm going to extend this line over to the edge of this point of the arc here, and I'm going to do that by just taking the point here, hovering over this, and then that will allow me to snap to the end of it. So now I'm lined up there. I'm going to click L for line, and then just bring it down to here, 90 degrees, nice. And then just to specify that those are different pieces, I'm going to make another little line there, L, and just go across here. So now I've got two distinct portions. I've got a top arc, and then I've got a bottom beam. I'm thinking that, I'm not really happy with the bottom of this portion here. It just seems a little too thick to be realistic. So what I can do here is I can just move that up and use the M command, move, select the base point, and I can actually just change that. I can type in 10 or 1000, that goes 1000 up, and then I can just trim off that little piece there. So now I've got this nice portion of the bridge. So next we are going to offset the rightmost cable 2500. So we're going to select both of those, or just the rightmost cable, and we're going to offset that over 2500. Here we go. OF offset from the middle 2500. So now that I've got that over there, I'm going to use this point later. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stretch this line above and below. I'm going to stretch it up, and then I'm going to select the bottom node, and then stretch it down. And we're going to use this as a really sort of a pivot line here. Next, we're going to rotate the line 2 degrees from the intercept with the bottom of the arc, and that's going to look like this. So I'm going to go over the rotate command now. So our rotate is RO. I'm going to type RO, that, and so I've already selected my point, or my line rather, my shape. And once I've selected my shape, I can type RO, enter, and then it's going to ask me to specify the base point. So if I want to rotate about the bottom arc line at that intercept, I'm going to go and click there at that green X, and it's going to ask me to specify a rotation angle, or just click a random one. I'm going to say 2 degrees, so I'm going to type 2 and then enter. And actually, instead, so it's the right way, I'm going to click undo. So I'm going to do U, enter, undo. I want to actually do -2 degrees. I'm going to select that again, RO, enter, select the base point there, and I want to go the other way, so I'm going to do -2 degrees. And that sort of gives you an idea of what is positive and negative here on AutoCAD. So now I've rotated that. You can see it's got a slight angle going to the left here. Now we're actually going to use this as a mirror line. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select everything on the... Actually, before I do that, I'm just going to extend these. So what I can do is I can use the extend EX. Before I mirror it, as I mentioned, I want to make sure that everything on the left side is something that I like. So I'm going to take these, I'm going to finish it off here, bring it to the edge of the mirror line. And I'm actually going to delete... Oh, no, I'll keep the 45. So now that I'm happy with this, I've extended those to the edge. I'm going to trim everything on this side of it so that this doesn't get flipped over the mirror line once I do that. So I'm going to use TR, trim, select these, get rid of those, enter. And so what I can do now is I'm going to use the green side to select everything that intersect. And that's really going to get everything there. So I've selected everything on the left side of the line. From here, I'm able to mirror. Now this is an especially important and useful command when you're modeling anything in AutoCAD, because when you're doing work, especially in civil engineering and you know, for Detroit ski bridge design, it's typically going to be symmetrical. And so what mirror allows you to do is just model half of the detail, half of the building or shape, and then you can mirror it across the line, so you only have to do half the work, which is really handy. So I've selected the left half, and I'm going to type MI for mirror. You can see the option there. If you're ever wondering where a command is, always just type it out. Usually the name is going to be what's designated as the shortcut. So I type MI, or I can type mirror in full, and I'm going to click enter. So as I've selected everything already, it's not going to ask me to select anything. It's going to ask me for the first point on the mirror line. So I'm going to select the top of this line that I've decided is my mirror line. You can see there in the top right hand corner the bridge, and I can rotate it around as I choose the second point of the mirror line. I'm going to go ahead and select the other point here, the bottom of the mirror line, and I'm going to erase the source objects. I'm going to click no because I want to keep the left side. So there's my bridge. You can see it's on sort of a little bit of a 2-degree slope from left to right. And it's not exactly what we want, so we're going to rotate 2 degrees back just to make this level. So I'm going to select everything, type RO, rotate, select the middle here, and 2 degrees back. And now I'm back level. And what this has done, that 2 degrees rotation that we did and then mirrored, is it's given a slope of these bottom beams here and here. And this can be useful if you're like designing something that, you know, allows the water to run off it to the left and the right, or if you're doing, you know, a truss bridge or things like that. You know, slight angles are typical of road details. But anyways, now we've got this bridge, and it's not super complete. You can see here we still got mirror lines, we still got these old 45 lines that we used to make the arcs. So what we're gonna do is we are going to delete these 45s here. Don't need those anymore. Select these and delete those. And then we're going to take the middle part here, and you can see, if you might remember, that for these cables we did 100 mils across. So if this is the center line and we want to put a cable right in the middle, I want to go 50 to each side. So I'm going to select the line and go OF offset. I want to type in 50, and I'm going to go 50 to this side. And I take the middle one again and go 50 to the other side. And so there, what I can do is I can trim off these excess portions. So I'm going to trim again. Trim. I'm going to leave the center line for now. And I'm just going to get rid of those on the left and right, those offsets that we just made, 50 to the left and right. So now we've got, or hold on, I might have accidentally deleted it. So it's okay, I accidentally deleted something. Undo, can undo, undo again. There we go, still there. Do that over again. And this is the one thing with AutoCAD is it's usually pretty forgiving. You just need to make sure that you're saving. Speaking of saving, I'm going to do that right after I trim that. Actually, for some reason, when I do that, it is deleting my entire lines. So I'm going to undo again. And instead of trimming this time, because it seems to just want to take my line and delete it, I'm just gonna stretch it back up to the intersection point here. And this is an alternative to trimming, but if you have a lot of things, trimming is usually easier, but that's another option. It's just to stretch it back up. So I've got my center line, I've got my center cable now. Before I go and talk about layers, which will be something that you may not need for modeling in Troitsky, although it may be useful, but it's especially useful in industry. Any drawing that you're going to be manipulating on AutoCAD is going to have several layers, usually several thousand or at least hundreds, depending on, you know, the size of the project or what industry you're working in. So what I'm going to do before that, though, is I'm going to save. So you do have your save button. You can also go to File. You go to File, Save, and you're just going to click a spot to save that. I've already specified a spot, but if not, you can go Save As, and then that'll give you options on where you want to save that. Should be familiar with this process. It's not that different from Word or any other thing where you're saving. So I've saved that someplace now. And I'm going to get into layers. And this is this bar over here. And it's a little scary because there's a lot of things going on here. I've got hide layer list, I've got properties, I've got layers. And then there's all these things down here, whether it's plot style or even like sun and sky, sun angle, rendering, settings. We really don't need any of that for our needs tonight. What we're gonna do first is we're gonna create a layer for different objects in our bridge here. And what this will let us do is it'll let us change the visibility of our drawing. So I could hide just the cables for a moment, and then if I wanted to show them to somebody after, I can turn it back on, or I can create two different layers with two different cable designs, and I can bring those up separately or overlap them together. But it really opens up what you can do on AutoCAD. So what I'm going to do here is, you can see this layer panel here, and there's a spot here. It's going to look like three stacked things. It's not three stacked things with a three stacked rectangles with the little pop-up. It's just this three stacked rectangles. I'm going to click on that, and that creates a new layer. So you can see it's asking me to make a name for it. Default is layer 1, but I'm going to call that center. I'm going to call that center line maybe. I'm going to click enter, and I'm going to find it. So no, I don't want to click that. So you can see it. I'm going to find it here. Let me just make this a little bigger. There we go. So I've got my center line here. It's pink. This is, some of these other layers are from previous work, but this is my center line that I just made. So I want to change this. I'm going to change it to red, and I can also change the line type here. So why don't I change it to a dashed line? So what I can do here is I'm going to make the center line red and dashed, and I'm going to assign it to the layer center line. So I'm going to select this. Right now it's on layer non-print pink as everything else, but now I've selected it, I can go up here and I can go to this drop down and I can assign it to a layer. I'm going to assign it to the red center line that we just made. So there you can see I've just got this center line here, and now it's a different color. And what this allows me to do is I can then turn on and off the visibility of this. So I can go to center line here. This is center line. I'm just going to make this bigger so you can see the whole name. And this is my visibility. I can hide it or show it. Right now it's showing. It also may look like a light bulb on Windows. But you can click on that, and then as you can see I clicked it. It's unselected now, or deselected, and the center line is gone. But if I select that again, then I'm showing my center line. So that's how you turn on and off a layer and create a layer. Now I'm going to create a new layer for the cables. So I'm just going to keep that center line off for now and create another layer for the cables. Cables. Click enter. It's default red. I'm going to make it yellow. I'm going to change it to continuous, and I'm going to go ahead and assign that to the cables. So select the cables here. Select those, and why don't I just drag across here. Get these guys, and so now I've selected all the cables. I can go here, change it from non-print, just as we did with the center line, and I can change it to the cables. Cables, it looks like they're gone, but as you can see here, visibility is just off. So I can click that again, and there are my cables. They're yellow, and I'm just going to keep that off for a second, and then I'm going to make another layer. I'm just going to call this layer 0, or call it layer 1, and I'm just going to make this one cyan, select the rest of the bridge. I'm going to get it off the non-print layer and turn that into layer 1. So I'm going to turn everything back on, the cables, the center line, and layer 1. As you can see, I've got this great bridge now. The beams, the arch, the girders, they are in cyan, cables in yellow, center line in red, and dashed. So this is pretty much as much as we're going to do in model space. And this should really give you the basics of, modeling in AutoCAD. Obviously, there's a ton more to explore within the modeling space. You can get into 3D if you really want, but that gets a little tricky. There are better programs for 3D modeling than AutoCAD. But there's, lots of things that you can do with different ellipses, polygons. Really, they've thought of everything here when it comes to drafting. Really comprehensive, but this is as far as we're going to go for today. I'm just going to quickly move into paper space or layout, and I'm going to introduce, some quick dimensioning, and that will bring us to the end of the tutorial. So here I've got this space here. You probably won't have this around the edge of your thing. I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of that so you don't have to worry about that. And you should have something like this. So now it probably, excuse me, looks like your space now. So what I can do here is I can insert a viewport. And what a viewport will do is it will allow me to place my bridge on this paper space. And what we're essentially doing is we're taking what we've modeled and we're putting it on a finite space as opposed to the infinite model space. And in this finite space, we can dimension it, and then it allows us, I can then send it to be printed. I can then, send it as a PDF, etc. So we're going to go to View for viewports. Go to Viewports, and then we're just going to do a new viewport. Really, the default should be good. I'm going to click OK, and I'm going to drag across the page to create a viewport. And so there, it's already gone and put my bridge inside the viewport right to the extents. If it wasn't in the viewport, I could double click on the viewport, and then I could go and find my model within it and make sure it's within the viewport. But it is in there, so I'm just going to go and I'm going to switch back to the dimensioning space. That's done here at the bottom, which is a toggle viewport button, and it just sort of looks like a couple borders stacked on top of each other. I'm going to click that, and that's going to bring me back to this space. This outside border here, that's in the non-print layer. I'm just going to change that quickly to be in layer 1 because I don't mind the border, or maybe even 0 so I don't see it. Okay, so I've got this. Got my bridge. I can zoom in, I can look at it, and I'm just going to go quickly over a few dimensioning things. Again, there's lots of rules around dimensioning. I'm not going to get into that today, but I'm just going to show you the basic commands. Down here on the sidebar, there's the basic dimension command. Alternatively, you can click DIM and click enter, and from here I'm able to select points on my model in this paper space and dimension across them. So I can click here, click the other end and bring it down, and I can see here, okay, it's 45,177 millimeters, or 45 meters, and 177 177 mils across. And I can do that for a bunch of things. I can put dimension inside dimensions, so I can go here to the center line and then bring that across. And so there's going to be my two halves. So there I've dimensioned my two halves along the center line. I know half, and then the full length of it. And I can do this really in any orientation. I can go and I can specify the height of the bridge, and I can do the spacing between cables. It's not quite on just because it's on the arc, but that sort of gives you the idea. And there's a lot of other things you can do here. I can put in a text box, drag, and then I can type what I want and do Troitsky bridge, and then that's gonna give me a text box. And obviously I can change that. I can change the text shape and color and size. But there's really a lot that you can play around here with. You can also dimension arcs by radius. So I can select here, and that's going to give me the radius of that. And you can also play around with callouts as well. Just another way that you can dimension things. So I can, say, arch. And then I'm going to have a leader there. This is called the leader. So that's sort of the basics of dimensioning in Paperspace. And the neat thing is, when I go to print this is going to be in, it's going to look like something. So right now it's in its colors. But actually if I go and I select these, and I just need to make sure that they're not on the non-print layer. I select these, and I make them, I'll just use the previous layer that I had, a dimension layer. And then if I go to print, which can be done through File and Print, I'm able to preview this. And hold on, this didn't quite work out. You can see the dimensions there. I just have to go and change it. But there's just a little setting here with my layers for the model that I haven't updated. But if you select the print option for your layers, you'll see everything, and you can print it out on full size or small size sheets. And that is sort of the basics of AutoCAD and dimensioning. Feel free to reach out on the Discord channel if you have any other questions. We will be posting some more 3D modeling software tutorials in the future, not by us, but just some videos off of YouTube that we thought were helpful, and that'll be coming soon on the website. And yeah, that is the end of the tutorial. I'm just going to minimize this.